Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this Friday's small stream that we're going to be doing. I had a lot of things that I wanted to say, but I didn't say in my last video. And today we're going to be kind of following up to some of them. We're going to be talking about things that kind of missed out. I'm going to obviously answer all of your questions that you had since last time. But we started this stream thankfully by, thanking the moderating team, because without the moderating team, as you know, this channel would not really exist in the quality that it is, and we would not be able to get you good news. Anyway, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, not anyway. Can you please join me in thanking the moderating team in the chat? They are very appreciative of that. So they have their own lives, their hard lives, but they're dedicating their time to help Ukraine. So thank you, everyone. Now we can say, let's get to the meat in potatoes today. So first and foremost, start putting your questions in the question sections. I will read them as we go along. In advance, I'm going to say sorry if I will not be able to answer all of them. But today, I was actually bothered by one specific thing. We talked extensively about how Ukraine can cope without the United States, right? And the biggest thing that came up, it was, well, why don't European Union just increase their expenditure on the different things, military things, and then they finance Ukraine instead. And it's not a bad idea in general. So I decided to do what a data nerd would do, and I decided to put some numbers in a spreadsheet. So today we're going to dive into the spreadsheet, and this is a bit early. I'm hoping I will present more data in one of the videos. But today, because you're on this stream, you're going to get a sneak peek, and we can talk about the data that I got. So without further ado, let me just switch to this data, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. So what I wanted to find out, the first thing is, what we want to find out is how rich a country is, how much money they have. Now, obviously, we cannot trust this data 100%, but this is definitely a data that at least gets us to someplace. And this data, again, I don't post it for all countries in the EU. So if I'm excluding a country from EU, and if you're watching me from that country, I'm sorry in advance. I'm just trying to look at the countries in the EU that have been expressed the desire to increase their defense spending in the European Union, and actually beyond the European Union, because, sorry, I always forget that United Kingdom unfortunately left us. But I also added the United Kingdom here. And the idea is very simple. So we have the output of the country. Then we need to realize that what money in that country can buy is depending on the current state of the prices. So we talked extensively about this, that producing the shell for weapons inside of Europe can be much more expensive than it is producing in Ukraine. And we don't have precise data for all of these things, but we do have something that is called the PPP, or price parity. I forgot the third one. The PPP prices. It is not fully accurate, but at least it kind of compares the country. So you have this nominal GDP right over here, but then if the prices for stuff in the country are relatively cheap compared to that income, so that means that Croatia, while having nominal GDP of 92 billion? Here is or is it trillion US dollars? I don't think it's trillion. I think United States is in trillion. So billion, 92 billion over here. Then the actual purchasing power would actually get it to almost 158 billion. So you get my point. Yeah, I know the spreadsheets can make it easy. That's why I'm taking it step by step. So I'm going to start coloring things. So in the first column, the column that is going to be yellow, this is a nominal prices. How rich country is. So how much output the country has. Then in the second column, we say how actually rich. So essentially, how much you can buy compared to the other countries. What's the price level? On price level. Then we have the third column. And the third column is kind of self-explanatory. I don't need to simplify it. It is the current estimated defense spending for the countries. So how much defense spending each country is doing. Then the next column is we're taking this how rich country actually is. Let's color it as a green column. Oh my God, green is so bad. No, let's not color it green. Let's call it light green. So we take this light green column and then we multiply it by the defense spending, and then we get some kind of defense spending output. So we get, if this percentage of defense spending is compared to how much country has in their own prices, then this is how much they can get. And let me just modify the currency here, just so we get it in dollars, just so it looks a bit better. So we know that Russia is spending about 6.3% of their GDP. And this is the target that we're getting. So something like 366 billions. And yeah, I know that Norway has wealth fund and so on, but we're trying to like get around this, right? It's the same assumption that we're doing for everything else, like that there is other countries in Europe than just the listed ones here, that there are countries outside Europe at all that are contributing, that United States is still contributing something to Ukraine. So we're kind of skipping a lot of these assumptions and putting them to the side. So we're trying to look like at the raw numbers here, like to try to estimate just how far are we from something. That defense spending is way off on all countries. Is it though? I got this, like, gotta say, like, I got this very, very close. So I will update this number a little bit more accurately in the future. There was a document that I had, NATO defense spending by country 2024. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Let's use this document. So quickly, I'll show you the document, and then we're gonna adjust. So let's defense spending by country. Where is the percentages? There we go. So let's take this. Are you agreeing with me at least on this document? Are we agreeing at least on this document? So let's start. Poland 4.12. Poland. Where is Poland? Poland 4.12. Yes, we're definitely off. Then Estonia 3.43. 3.43. United States 3.38. United States was actually kind of close. Then we get Latvia 3.15. Latvia 3.15. Greece we skip. Lithuania 2.85. 2.85. Finland 2.41. Denmark 2.37. Finland 2.31. Denmark 2.37. 2.37 Denmark. United Kingdom 2.33. Romania 2.25. United Kingdom 2.33, and Romania was 2.25. Romania 2.25. Yes. Norway is 2.2. 2.2. Bulgaria 2.18. Wait, why don't we have Bulgaria? Oh, I should add Bulgaria, but okay. For now, without Bulgaria, but Bulgaria actually should be on this list because Bulgaria has been contributing a lot, to be honest. So we shouldn't be skipping it, but I'll adjust it. 2.14 Sweden. Germany, 2.12. Yeah, by the way, if you didn't know, Germany is over 2%. A lot of people thought Germany is not, but they're expecting that they will go in 2024. That was the expectations. We don't know if it's reality, but we're going by best assumptions. Czechia, 2.1. France, 2.06. 0.06. Netherlands, 2.05. 2.05. Slovakia is out. Croatia, 1.81. 1.81. Portugal, Italy, 1.49. Italy was actually, I think, the most precise one. It was 1.5. Canada is not in this one. We're talking about Europe. Belgium, I didn't add. Slovenia, 1.29. 1.29. And I think that's it. Yes, that is it. Spain, 1.28, but I didn't add Spain because Spain is a bit further away. Okay, with a little bit of delay, now at least, Finland is 2.41, not 0.231. Finland. 2.41, Finland, exactly. 2.41. Perfect. So now with a bit of delay, we finally got the percentages included. So now we get some numbers. Now we get the number that is Russian. Now we get the number that is Ukrainian. And now we get the number of EU. So highlighted numbers here. So the top one is how much EU is spending. Well, not EU, but these countries that are pretty hard in supporting Ukraine. So their spending is actually already bigger than the Russian one. So Russians are spending 6.3%, and they're getting about 366 billion. And then we have Ukraine. And Ukraine, with spending of 36.7%, is spending 205 billion. Now, this is obviously not fully correct here, because a lot of this spending that Europeans are doing, a lot of this is going towards their militaries. A lot of this is going towards the personnel, maintenance of super equipment, and then some part of it is getting to Ukraine. So we can say that, what was it, the EU contributions, that European contributions were this year? Let's open the Kiel Institute. So Kiel Institute, Data Hub, let's go. Ukraine Support Tracker, Kiel Institute. Obviously, it counts the whole of Europe, not just these selected countries. But we see that Europeans allocated 132, but we're interested in the military budget. Is there only the military one? Is there military? Please tell me there is a military one. There isn't. Okay. But let's say it's about half, because I'm looking at the military. No, it's actually quite a lot of it is the military is in this column. Let's just select the military one. 12, 16. Unfortunately, I cannot fully see that is. Oh, wait. Government support Ukraine by month billion. United States. No, never mind. Okay, I'll need to dive into this. But we see that Europe in total contributed 132 billion. Let's say it's about half. Maybe let's say 65% or 60%. So 60% would be something like 74 billion total from EU. So from this amount, actually, Ukraine got only about 74 billion. So that is the European calculation here in red. That is the European contribution. Okay, maybe not so bright red. There we go. So you can easily see that even if we put these two numbers together, it is still barely reaching for the Russian GDP. However, I don't feel that the Russian spending is fully accurate as well. I feel that Russians, first and foremost, there are, I already explained why I'm missing few of the countries. There are a couple of countries that fully dedicated to support Ukraine, but there's a lot of countries that are not dedicating to fully support Ukraine, unfortunately. And that's why I'm saying, so it's not to diss on the countries, it's just I'm not sure if they are fully committed to increase their GDP, not just to increase their defense, but to specifically dedicate it to help Ukraine. So that's kind of the only country that I missing here pretty much is Bulgaria. Spain donated a lot of tanks already. Let's go. Spain's contribution. Oh, I see it. It's right over here. So military aid allocated by Spain, 0.79 billion. So 790 million. That's not bad. That's not bad. But it's definitely not the numbers that we are really looking into. Like for a country that Spain is, you can see that there is a big discrepancy about like how much Spain produces, like to how much is. I will potentially add all of the countries. Don't focus on it right now. We're just getting sideways here. Anyway, so what I'm thinking is, for Russia, despite the fact that the official number is 6.3%, we also know that Russia is subsidizing their defense industry. Beyond that, Russia is also having some secret procurements for the defense industry. And beyond that, there is a lot of things that allies are doing for Russia. For example, North Korea is supplying Russia about 2/3 of their artillery shells. That is a lot. Like having 2/3 artillery shells is a lot. So what I thought is, let's try to assume that actually Russia is spending about 10% of GDP. And this is not just Russia, this is combining their allies, this is combining everything. So then we get to this number, 5.81. And this is where we are looking into seeing, well, can European Union really match this? So if Europe, on average, will spend 3.5%, if Europe, like these countries specifically, agree, then total number will go to 777 billion that's spent on EU. If we take the current rate that is being delivered to Ukraine, why is this not working? So we take this from this. This is the ratio that we're getting. It's actually not a dollar, it's a currency. So if we take this and multiply it by our coefficient, then after 3.5%, this is what could be contributed to Ukraine. So if Ukrainian number stays the same, and this one is the same, and then we add these together, just so we get to the final, then Ukraine will still be in a severe deficit for the money that it needs. So two things needs to happen. That is that to solve this problem. So that's the problem. The problem is that if we just increase to 3.5, which is the reasonable number that Europe is discussing, that is not enough. That just does not get us to the numbers that we are looking for. What needs to change is, first and foremost, this needs to change, which is how much the coefficient of how much the European Union is contributing to Ukraine compared to their total budget. And I think there is a good reason to do so, because Europe is, as I said, like a lot of this spending over here is also tied up in current maintenance, personnel costs, and so on. When we looked at our page over here, and we specifically later looked at the distribution, of the categories of the defense spending, we saw the pattern over here that the countries that spend more percentage-wise, they spend on personnel and maintenance costs less, and they spend percentage-wise more on equipment. This led us to believe to one specific conclusion, that all of the increase in the numbers is contributing mostly in additional equipment. So if Europe will get an increase in their spending, then it will be mostly in equipment. And I believe that if it's mostly going to be equipment, then this is what's going to contribute to this increase of spending. Second thing that Europe needs to do. We talked about the yellow and the green column, where what countries having is not the same as in different country. So you can buy for the same €1, you can buy more in Ukraine than you can buy in Germany. So additionally, what we should expect is more direct military contributions to Ukraine. And right now, these calculations are a bit difficult, but I will definitely look and see what kind of a breakdown we need to do. So, to sum up, so far, it doesn't look very good for Europe. The decision that needs to be made for us to be completely confident that Europe will be supporting Ukraine is an increase of average of over 3.5% for sure. Secondly, they need to, it's probably going to be stated as biggest military package to Ukraine or something like this. They need to get to their yearly averages, not 74,000, not 116 billion euro support to Ukraine. They need to get much, much higher. Most likely, like if we say coefficient of 0.3, it's still not enough. Coefficient 0.4, yeah. So now at least we're somewhere in comparable numbers. So we should be looking at Europe supplementing Ukraine with at least over 300 billion. This is dollars, so euros is going to be a little bit less, but over 300 billions per year. If we don't want to supplement 300 billion euros per year to Ukraine, then more direct monetary contributions and investments into Ukrainian defense industries should happen. That's the challenge. So long story short, what do you feel, guys? Do you think Europe can do it? Do you think Europe can cash out over 300 billion or not? It's definitely possible, but this is specifically what's going to be testing our resolve. And this is my cutoff point, right? I love cutoff points because those are the things that allows me to see complicated world in a little bit more understandable line. If we will see that European Union is serious to support Ukraine, and to be honest, there is not really an option for that, then we should see contributions to Ukraine rise significantly, 300 billion plus. Annalena Baerbock said that these contributions needs to be massive. My hope that they will be. I will be monitoring this, and I'll be telling you about this. So today was a bit chaotic presentation of the challenge that comes into. And now I'm ready to answer all of your questions. But before, let me call out some of the fan funding. So Richard Bennett, thank you so much for giving 10 Ukraine members, Ukraine Matters memberships. Appreciate it. Shimra Jamana, Norway has the world's largest sovereign wealth fund at over 1 trillion to be used in emergencies. Just saying. Yes, but so far it's unclear whether Norway wants to do it. I feel still that Europe thinks that they need to prepare not for this war with Russia, but they need to prepare for the next war with Russia. So far, I'm still missing the point that Europeans fully acknowledge that it's better and easier and cheaper for them if Ukraine fights and Ukraine wins over Russia. But we've heard a lot of strong statements, and this is going to be our cutoff point now if these statements will be supplemented by actual actions. Lili Strumpa, thank you so much for 50 Swedish kroners. Appreciate it. Ibag MM, thank you so much. Ibag M, thank you so much for being a member for 24 months. Appreciate it, my friend. All right, let's get to the questions. So the first question that I see, because it cuts off some of the first ones, it seems like a no-brainer. Ukraine has everything under control. All Europe has to do to come and clean up the operation. True, but definitely Europeans are still not ready to fight in kinetic war, which they should, but they're not ready. And we need to see how big the disconnect is from what Europe needs to do, because now we have a cutoff point, and what Europe actually will do. Kellen Dunn, what is your thoughts on the US-Ukraine mineral deal? This is blackmail, and I don't think Ukraine should sign anything right now. Trump is a Kremlin whore. So important here is I don't see any issues for Ukraine in signing that deal. I think Ukraine selling their mineral rights is a good thing. I don't think the deal itself is a bad thing. Because for Ukraine, the most important thing is the preservation of their territory, and they're ready to go. Unfortunately, it's been completely misunderstood by Trump, and he thinks that he can just turn Ukraine into the resource colony, which is not what Ukraine is offering. Ukraine is saying, help us develop these things, agree to come and protect these resources, and provide us security guarantee. So what are they saying is that we're ready to sell you the rights to these resources if there are also binding security guarantees, like the list of weapons that will be provided yearly, list of additional forces that could be added at some point. If it's just like what was proposed to Zelensky, a non-binding memorandum agreement on Ukraine kind of generally just giving away half of what they have, and not just resources, by the way. It's called the resource deal, but it wasn't just the resources. It was also Ukrainian infrastructure and Ukrainian infrastructure operation on the terms that all of the kind of work and profits are first and foremost paid to United States and only then paid to Ukrainian people. So potentially just demanding that no matter if you make profit or not, you pay our share first and foremost. That is not a deal. That is dog shit. And Zelensky, he has respect for Ukraine. It's good to offer resources, but if the deal is shit, we already know that Zelensky will just say no. So the only solution that I can provide for Trump, if he wants that deal, don't provide a shitty deal. That's it. Simple as that. Data Relay. Hi, Georgies. Thank you for what you do. My question, how many Russia does it take to screw a Russian puppet in Kiev? Yeah, okay. Funny. Mr. Good Citizen. Hi, Georgie. Do you think Putler has something on POTUS and blackmailing him? Potentially. To be honest, don't really care. Beer Static, do you know of other programs like UK Greyhawk that turns existing Ukrainian stockpiles of R-73 air-to-air missiles into modern ground-based air defense? Maybe, but Beer Static, every specific weapon besides like some critical ones that can do only one capabilities, it's a nice thing, but there is no kind of super weapon, so all of the things is just great. Like, the more the merrier. Phil, have you watched this video, Dark Gothic MAGA, how tech billionaires plan to destroy America? No, not really. Again, I truly believe that America in November has chosen to put themselves on this path. And as I said on my first video, I respect the democratically selected path that Americans have chosen. I try to do my share to try to convince someone to see things my way, how I see it. It didn't work out. Americans chose that. I respect democracy. I respect their democratic choice to potentially stop being democracy. It's a decision by the people, right? Everything in the world is by decision of the people. And if people just say, well, we don't want democracy, if they don't want the status quo, they want changes towards what seems to be more authoritarian regime, can we influence that? I'm not sure. So looking at these YouTube videos of how tech billionaires plan to destroy America, dude, like, it's already happening. It's not about YouTube videos by this point. RC, thanks mods. Yes. Steve Bendel, as drones are taking over the battlefield, can Ukraine do with less artillery shells? Yes and no. Different purposes for different types of weapons. Very, very different ones. There were certain tasks that were done by artillery before, but now they're being done by drones. So yes, there are other things that drones can cover, but drones cannot cover the things that artillery can do. So a lot of things that artillery can do, drones can never do. Gaza, if USA lifts sanctions on Russia, should and could Europe sanction Russia? I think it will harm them more than Europe and maybe pull them back in line. Europe has already sanctioned Russia. I'm not sure if you know. What was also in Europe is a big reluctance to put the actual sanctions that are painful for Russia. We still are trading a lot with Russia. Belgium, for example, is buying incredible amounts of Russian gas, liquefied gas, and there is a work to be done here. The problem of Europe is not the fact that we have not put good sanctions on Russia. We did. The problem is that we have not been really enforcing a lot of them. And that is our own bad deal, because countries that's supposed to enforce sanctions, that want to enforce sanctions on their own companies, and we live in this bizarre world where where our politicians in Europe are declaring how big an enemy and existential threat Russia is, yet we continue sustaining Russia with our own money. It's a bizarre world. I mean, like, that's what our governments are running for. And instead of opposing these governments and saying, what the fuck are you doing, we're stating, okay, Germany, let's elect some far-right Nazis that are stating that instead we want to have an open relationship with Russia. So we are tumbling into a very, very weird world for sure. HRM, could you see America invading a European nation? I mean, by this point, anything is possible. So yes, possibly. But I think the ground is not set yet. Do you think it is realistic that an end to the war will be negotiated in 2025 like US believes? Absolutely fucking not. Like, who is negotiating the end to the war? Who is negotiating? Putin is not negotiating the end of the war. Ukraine is not negotiating the end of the war. Europe is not negotiating the end of the war. Who is negotiating the end of the war? Canada. Last time I asked you about what Canada should do in recent time of US betrayal of allies. And you said join the EU. My question is how and what can I do to do that? Write your direct representatives. I don't know if you have petitions for... We have, like in a lot of countries in Europe, we have our own websites where popular petitions for needs to be taken into the consideration by the government, and they need to discuss and come with either opinion or actually have a discussion on it with an answer. So potentially something like this getting started in Canada could be interesting. Maybe pitch an idea to some of the opposition parties. They're usually more open to, like, not opposition, but like supporting parties. They're usually pretty good at promoting these smaller steps. There's interesting options to do that. Stephen Kaiser, question. Is it all following the Bannon plan? Or is the Trump being puppet of Musk? Again, don't know. It was definitely Bannon that proposed the method that is right now being used by MAGAs. It's called, scattershot method or something like this. He had like a whole interview where he talked about that as soon as they get power, they need to kind of push. They need to get like 700 different topics out. There's 700,000 talking points, like change this, do that, and so on. And he says basically that the system and people get confused, media gets confused. They can focus only like 1, 2, 3 maybe problems at a time. And he says like, while these muscle velocity, exactly. And then while everyone kind of focuses on some of the three problems, then about 15, 20 of the other problems that are important, they get passed. So that's been proposal plan, and so far it seems that it's exactly what is happening. Ghost Rider, opinion on outcome Macron visiting Trump next week when it comes to dealing with Putin is going to be absolutely useless. Cornelis Zangbergen, what do you know and can share about Russian soldiers surrendering and in the Pokrovsk area in particular? Well, so the first thing that you need to understand, no one is surrendering, right? We need to like, because when we're talking about surrendering, we often say, oh, Russians surrendered, Ukrainians surrendered, whatever. No one is surrendering. There is no surrendering. Russians are forced to surrender or tricked to surrender. Forced to surrender is not the same as Russians surrendering. So no one is just coming at goodwill and just like hands up. No, after Ukrainians punch them really hard in face, some of them lose the final bits of hope and then they surrender. And that is also happening in Pokrovsk, where Ukrainians are counterattacking. Ghost Rider, if mineral deal is official, do you think Trump will provide real aid if it is within the mineral deal? So, because that's kind of the only way forward for Zelensky. Like, he is trying to use Trump's greed to maybe get some more help for Ukraine. Raskaris, how much physical capacity is there in the EU military manufacturing base to significantly expand production? I get that Europe has money, but money cannot buy what cannot be made. Yes, Europe has everything that it needs. Like, we have literally almost everything that we need to expand our production base very, very fast. The problem of Europe is always, and have been, and is incredible piles of bureaucracy. Europe is just goddamn slow. Stefan Kaiser, question: What is the plan of Ukraine when being cut off of military information by the US? Question mark. Is there a plan B or C? Well, the information by the US has indeed been critical. The question was specifically for the Starlinks and so on. Those are the things that are absolutely critical, and they are being sponsored by Pentagon. And so far, if they would be cut off, Ukraine would be absolutely screwed. Like, there is right now no real substitute for that. Like, pretty much 90% of Ukrainian command structures and command and control goes through Starlink. Nick Lindberg, no questions today, G, just a thank you from the mod team and all your work. Appreciate it. Brogad, Trump canceled all aid to Ukraine. What are your thoughts about this? Did he cancel? I haven't seen this. There was not a fake, but wrong assumption that Trump canceled all of the military aid. It was a claim by the guy on the Ukrainian, I believe, some defense committee. Like, I think Verkhovna Rada, the defense committee. And it was within like half an hour, the Ukrainian MPs came out with the rejection of that statement, that it is not true, that there has been no stoppage in deliveries of the military equipment from US. So if this is what you meant, then it's been debunked. If you meant something else, then I haven't seen it. Peter Rinichuk, do you have data on how much EU country GDP percent increase is going to Ukraine directly? So, for example, if Poland is spending 5% on military, Ukraine is getting 2% of equipment, supplies, and so on. No, but this is something that I will calculate based on each country's contribution to Ukraine, and I'm going to take it as a percentage of their military budgets. So when I'm going to present that table that I gave you a sneak peek at the start, because this is stream and we just talking stuff here a lot more openly, when it's going to be a video, I'm going to present it in a lot more concise and pretty way. so everyone can understand it. Pixel Lord, where is Spain and Canada on this? Canada is not a European country. Also, I haven't heard that Canada is looking to increase their spending, but I will look into this. Takeshi Mitsunade, is Putin about to declare victory soon or can it be prevented? He can declare whatever he fucking wants. He can declare that he got the first, what is it called? I don't know, he got a fish that came out of his butthole. Anything can be declared by Putin. He can say whatever he wants. It all doesn't matter. What Putin says is complete garbage. He hasn't said a word that was not a lie. It's useless to listen to what Putin says. He doesn't matter. Ukraine matters. Glenn Infante, maybe. I'm sorry for butchering your name. I'm from America. I don't trust Trump. Then the world shouldn't trust him also. How much possibility is World War III, not a nuclear type? Well, that's exactly what the European states so far seemingly are preparing themselves for, right? The fact that they're not giving Ukraine still what they need means only one thing, that they don't really expect Ukraine to win, so they are stockpiling and preparing their militaries to fight Russia, I guess, later on when Russia invades the European nations. I don't know. It's a weird, bizarre world where we have a lot of very loud statements and people then don't follow it up with actions. Jay McGregor, help me understand. Why are they saying Ukraine was going to join NATO as reason to invade when Baltic countries joined 2004? They waited 70 years to act. Jay McGregor, it's a stupid propaganda talking point. It has nothing to do. There is no truth to this. Like, guys, you need to start filtering the bullshit. I've tried explaining on this channel so much that statements like these, they are not true and they don't matter, right? What matters is like what's happening maybe in Ukraine with the people, what's happening with the countries supporting Ukraine, because Ukraine is very dependent on these countries. But all of these statements, all of these rhetorics has shown itself to be absolutely pointless and bankrupt. All of these verbal agreements, we're going to be with Ukraine for as long as it takes, we need to support Ukraine until it wins, and then not really increase defense spending and so on. All of these verbal interventions in a trash can. Everything that is being spoken out, if there is no action that is following it up, is completely in a trash can right away. Max Musterman, how to unite the free nations fast? Is that a Google search? I don't know. It's like, I mean, Ukraine, I think like, okay, I have a solution. So Ukraine needs to take bigger responsibility. It feels for me that a lot of the European nations, they're kind of like a blind person. It like they need a guide dog. I think Ukraine can be more aggressive on the diplomatic stage and like to an extent basically almost like intervening and like asking to join committees within every single individual state to basically demand and guide the European states. Because I feel there is a lot of goodwill for Zelensky, there is a lot of desire, but it feels like that a lot of the countries are still like, you know, just stumbling in the dark. Like they just talking loosely about increase of defense budgets without talking what kind of capabilities and how much specific spending that needs to be done for Ukraine. We haven't seen any specific plans whatsoever. We've seen like the plan by Mario Draghi, and Mario Draghi basically said, can you finally look at my plan just recently? Well, he didn't say that. He's a lot more collected than this guy over here, but you get my point. PPP, purchasing power parity. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. I just forget the parity part. What about frozen assets can be used? Yes, they can be used. Will they be used is a political question. There is nothing stopping Europe to use these funds. The only thing that's stopping EU from using these funds is lack of balls. Nothing else, to be honest. How much would we get if EU gave 0.25%? Every country in your list would be a start to the amounts. Yes, we said like that we're looking about 0.4%, which is a kind of an insane amount when you think about this, right? Like giving away half of your defense budget to Ukraine, like, well, not half, like 40%, feels unrealistic, but we'll see what's going to happen. Have you kept up with Danish and Scandinavian use? You seem a bit behind. No, I'm not. I know that there are plans for bigger increase and so on. Again, what I was saying in Excel and why I said 3.5 is because while Denmark might increase their spending, by the way, Denmark actually so far is going to increase it not to 3.5 even. So far, Denmark has announced that they're going to increase it to 3.2. And Denmark is like one of the front runners, the more aggressive country on the list that's going to be helping Ukraine. So if Denmark right now is only 3.2, then we're not even reaching 3.5. I'm actually giving a lot bit more charity to the whole European Union. So saying is like, yeah, but Denmark has been discussing they're going to get it to 5. Yes, when in 5 years? No, it's no. Sorry. I'm a little bit like cutting through this verbal bullshit that's been happening. Before I see the real numbers, it's great. It's great that Denmark aims to spend much more. But so far, it's 3.2. And as I said, Denmark is a front runner. Akia, a European industry is currently looking for tens of thousands of new employees to increase production. Money alone is not enough. Everyone from every field is needed. Yes. Harald's Ulmanis. Shouldn't Ukraine make a resource deal better with Europe? It should. But this is what I say when Europe is slacking, right? Because it's such a no-brainer for Europe to agree on the resource deal. But they just flounder around. They followed Joe Biden's plan for management of escalation. They allowed missiles and drones to fly into their territory. It already cost some European lives. So that's the point, that Europeans still haven't found out what the fuck do they want. And the point is, like, do you want this? Like, if they want this, then they do it. Then do it. Approach Ukraine. Talk about this. Talk about getting money to Ukraine. Go for it. No one is standing between Ukraine and the European Union. Go do it. Why? Why are you standing here? You're talking about, well, Trump is negotiating the peace agreement, and Europe is not invited, and everyone is like making a lot of these noises. Everyone is so concerned, so complained. Well, what are you doing about this? What are you doing? You're going to cry to Trump? That's your solution? What Ukraine has realized, and what I emphasized in my last video, is that Ukraine has found their agency. That Ukraine can say is like, Trump, we want to sell you a lot of our resources. Trump says, here's the deal. Ukraine says, it's a shit deal. We don't take it. And Europeans are like, oh shit. Oh, Trump is deciding the future defense structure of the European Unions. And he's like not going to be protecting us. And they're like, well, what is happening? The world is spinning. Media, we need to complain. This is unprecedented. The world has never seen this. It's like, enough panicking. What are you doing about this? Like, just defense spending is not enough. Like, it's defense spending is you're making up for the things that should have been already there. If you want to be essentially self-sufficient, self-reliant, then what you're looking for is fucking proactivity. Do something. If you want to be the leader inside of Europe, then fucking lead. Sorry. It annoys me the much that Europeans are so good at crying, so good at concerning, And then when the push comes to shove, then they said, "Oh, but we can't like because if we increase defense spending right now, then we're gonna have a problem with the way of life. Then we suddenly not gonna have the quality of life that our people are expecting. Bitch, if Russia invades like after years with China full to the blown with like the Iranian weapons and so on, who's gonna care about your way of life? The drones? Like this reminds me of what was happening in Ukraine. It's like Ukraine has a lot of problems, and one of the problems was people. And it's a stupid example, but it's an example nonetheless. So Pokrovsk, the city that is being obliterated as we speak by Russians. So about half a year ago, there was a big critique of the mayor of Pokrovsk or governor of Pokrovsk, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like that he was investing money to buy flower pots and decorate the park inside Pokrovsk instead of spending money on building trenches and preparing for defense of the city. This is what I feel looks like right now. We are thinking about how pretty our rose garden is and how we are going to enjoy this instead of thinking what the other ear is doing, instead of explaining to the population inside of European Union that we are in a very bad situation with Russia, that potentially this will mean that your children will have to enlist in our non-existent military, because it is non-existent. We have a lot of plans, but no one said like, well, what are you going to do if after like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, Russia is going to build like hundreds of thousands of drones and going to get like a 2 million army together with like Chinese, North Koreans, whatever. And then they just start flowing over the border. And it's like, oh, we have planes. Cool. What you going to do with the 2 million people that Russia doesn't really care if they die or live? How are you going to stop them? Cry? Oh, America, come to save us. Insane. Insanity. Like, I feel like I live in a crazy person's world. Everyone is just like, yes, blah, 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 do this, increase Ukraine, win, and so on. Do something. Like, people really want to be treated seriously. I read in the last video the message from the Ukrainian on the front line, the commander of Azov Brigade. And he says it's always been the case that the people that are respected are the strong ones, people that are respected that have essentially stated who they are and what they do. So if Europe wants to be respected, if Europe wants to be defended, do it. Cornelis Zandbergen. How much can Ukrainian war industry grow in the coming years? They can produce 30-40% of their own needs. Yes. They have been growing extensively. Moreover, the things that their strategy that they have chosen has been incredible, right? Once the Ukrainian Minister of Defense came in, he said, we need to fully revamp our defense purchases and defense procurement to the new realities. And they started assigning coefficient to the weapons. And that coefficient was essentially, how do we say, dollars per kill. So how much money does this weapon cost us to like get one Russian down? And they started investing. And that's why drones were such a big investment, because they're just so cost efficient. And now we see incredible investments in the drone technology. And now we're seeing that about 2/3 of casualties of Russians on the front line is done by the Ukrainian drones. Because Ukrainians have been investing in these technologies that are efficient. Bang for buck. And I feel potentially this is the way to go for us as well. So we need bang for buck technologies as well. I don't think like drones would be a good solution long term, but I think having these coefficients for the situations that we find ourselves in is what relies. Yes, HR Lopez, thank you so much. Yes, for £2. Anonymous voting. unanimous voting. I always like mispronounce this. Unanimous voting is a bane of European Union. The absolute fucking bane. There should be a clause that in extreme cases, in critical situations, when those situations can be declared, we should not have unanimous decisions. We should have either groups that are the most impacted should be leading some kind of groups or anything, because it's just committees, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's insane that we're still living in a period where we are paralyzed to do literally anything. But my rant is still valid because it's not only about what we're doing in the European level, it's also about like each individual country level. Like Tusk has been like stating, it's like, we need to do something about better spending in Europe. I was like, do it. Bad News Badger, thank you so much for 200 Danish kronas. I stumbled into a Russian support conversation the other day when they found out I was for Ukraine. I was asked who trusts more, Putin or Zelensky. I said Putin. I know for a fact that everything he say is 100% lies. Yeah, that's not a bad assumption. True. Harald Ullman is welcome to the Brother in Arms. Epic round, Georgies. Like it's the. Listen, my problem has been always on this channel is like people say, Georgie, epic rants and so on. Is like, my problem is like, why am I saying this? Like, what I hope is like that there's going to be people with real power, people that actually matter, not the guy on YouTube, but someone that actually has real power would say it maybe in a lot nicer way, or even better, don't say, just act. My problem is it's so self-evident that we need to have like some kind of leadership, and that all Europeans are just paralyzed. And if you want to lead, do the leading, push the boundaries. How did Ukraine got tanks? Do you remember how Ukraine got tanks? I remember that discussion. Should we remind ourselves how that went? Because that went about like this. Ukraine, we need tanks. Everyone was like, you're not getting tanks. He's like, Ukraine, but we really need tanks. It's stupid. You've provided us like already the armored vehicles. Why don't you provide us tanks? Everyone's like, we can't provide tanks. Germany, can you provide us tanks? No, we cannot provide you tanks because German tanks are going to be in Russia. No, we're going to use it in Ukraine because Russia is fighting us in Ukraine. They're literally invading us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's German tanks. We don't want German tanks to fight Russia. US, will you provide us tanks? And it's like, no, we cannot provide you tanks because we see that it might be escalation management and we're not sure if this is good. It's like, France, can you provide us tanks? We can provide you wheeled tanks. And then France provided them wheeled tanks. And then after some wheeled tanks, which were not like, those are not actually wheeled tanks, but like so on. France provides wheeled tanks to Ukraine. Then suddenly United Kingdom provides the Challenger tanks. And then Germany is like, we're still not providing tanks. Literally everyone is already providing tanks. And I forgot the main argument that like all the Soviet tanks providing was okay. It's just the NATO tanks, because NATO tanks, no, big deal. It was like, and then there is like a weird standoff for like a month. And then finally US says, okay, we're going to provide 30 tanks. And then Germany is like, yes, here are the Leopards. There you go, Ukraine. Please be grateful to us. And it's like, you're 3 months too late. We're already forming brigades. Your slowdown did not allow us to form brigades in time. And now the offensive that we were planning for March has now been moved to June. Remember that? I remember that. The point is, if Europe wants to lead, then fucking lead. Who knew that World War III was going to be China, Russia, and the USA against the rest of Europe? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Tesla the Hood. Would a peace deal with the condition that Ukraine can join NATO immediately if Russia attacks again sounds good enough to... Would a peace deal with the condition that Ukraine can join NATO immediately if Russia attacks again sounds good? What does it mean? Like Tesla, it's so insane. It's such an insane... Guys, you're buying the cheapest bullshit that is spewed to us. It's like, what does this mean? Like, what is this deal? Like, how do you imagine this? Like, let's talk about this. It's like, oh, Ukraine. So, it's like your people have been fighting and dying. Well, let's do this shitty deal. So, like, you give everything to Russia, but if Russia attacks you again and more Ukrainians die, then you're gonna join the NATO. Huh? Another alliance with another agreement? Come on, I know you liked it. And we're not sure that everyone is going to accept you because people are going to be challenging the NATO approach and will be actually support you, because NATO is actually not an automatic protection. NATO is not like a bunch of weapons. No, it's countries that needs to go there. It's like, are you suggesting that then the countries will come and protect Russia? Well, that's not something that I've heard proposed. Like, it's the cheapest fucking bullshit that's just been spewed to you, taken in your ears, and instead of like, well, this is garbage, just like throw it out because like, it's like, why? It's just insane that these stories are still being treated with any kind of seriousness. Okay, I need to stop yelling. It's really, really, really bad. It's so bad, man. God, like Ukraine joining NATO if it gets invaded again. What? Oh. It's like, we don't want to fight Russia now, but next time, for sure. Jack Sparrow, there was a report that Trump was a KGB asset way back. Okay, Dad. Whatever. AG Gormy, if Europe and Ukraine refuses peace deal, can Trump be pissed and support Russia against US? If Europe and Ukraine refuses peace deal, can Trump be pissed and support Russia against us? Yeah, why not? Like, that would be not impossible. I can easily imagine it. Tesla in the hood, how big of a role did EU? How big of a role did the EU, not going all in at first, do you think played a role in Trump switching up on Ukraine? Yeah, because if the allies would just do what Ukraine asked them to do and not play the escalation management game where they are now tapping themselves on the back, like circle jerking, holding each other's dick off to wank, and stating how good of a statesman there was that they prevented the nuclear war, then this war would not exist. This war would be over. Ukraine had all of the cards and Russia had nothing. Nothing. Russia was literally falling apart. You know, let's recap. Since we're recapping the state of events, let's recap. So, 2022. So Russia is not having a good time, really bad time. They tried to invade Ukraine from the get-go. They've failed. They were kicked with the smelly shoes. They were kicked out from around Kyiv. Their military is in shambles. Their army is having it really bad. Yet Putin still pushes for Ukraine to fight. Ukraine is asking for weapons. Weapons are not coming in. Ukraine is getting like the basic javelins. They're getting basic stuff. Ukraine says, we need weapons. We need stuff to counter their artillery. We need equipment. We need stuff. Okay, good. Some stuff comes in, especially artillery, and most importantly, during the summer, the HIMARS. HIMARS change everything. HIMARS ruined the Russian logistic network. They ruined the support for a lot of the parts, specifically for that part around the Kherson. And Ukraine starts creating this amazing plan. They say that they will attack Kherson and they will retake Kherson. So come the end of summer, I believe it's in August, Ukraine starts their offensive operation in the Kherson region. Russia pulled all of their best resources that they had at the time, everyone, like they were beaten up, they already sustained a lot of damage. There was no flow of equipment from the Russian stockpiles as of just yet. Like some was coming in, but not everything. Russia just didn't have the factories to support the removal of stuff from the facilities, long storage facilities. So they were barely supplied. They still run mostly on what they had, but there was a lot of people that got onto Kherson, and Ukraine sustained a lot of heavy damages in Kherson when they attacked. But Russia exposed their other flanks. They exposed their flanks on the Kharkiv region, and Ukraine found a weak spot, penetrated that weak spot, and then went through and wreaked havoc in the Kharkiv region, retaking intense amounts of territory. The problem was that they just run out of equipment. They run out of artillery shells, they run out of stuff. And then they said, like, okay, we kicked the Russians out of Kherson because they were pushed out. Then they pushed out Russians of Kharkiv region, and Russia was scrambling because HIMARS have been decimating their logistics, and Russia didn't have the adjusted logistics to supply new weapons. The only thing that Russia was able to do at that moment is send in untrained, unready, like guys with a lot of machine guns. That was the only army that had. They didn't have like really proper equipment, really proper coordination. They didn't have a proper command. It was a prime picking time. So the end of October, mid to end of October, Ukraine tried to push more, but they were asking like, we need more weapons. We need more ammunition. And at that moment, Biden said no. Biden, like an European Union and every European ally, at that moment says, well, Putin clearly just had major losses in Ukraine, so they are now going to do in the political track. So instead of supplying Ukraine with weapons, from about the start of October until about the mid-February, there was a huge lull of deliveries of supplies from allies. It was basically gone. It was absolutely gone. So instead of supplying Ukraine with the weapons and do everything that Ukraine needs, because Russia at that moment was there on their knees, they didn't have logistics, they didn't have anything. Ukraine had the momentum, they just needed resources. And Ukraine had bigger army because Russia had no mobilized army. They only had their army that they had. Ukraine had actually manpower advantage and nothing. Instead, they tried to approach Putin. Putin just played them a little bit, extended time, mobilized his population. This is where he said the mobilization efforts, trained up, demobilized, got their stuff from the long-term storage, invested in their economy, build up facilities, and most importantly, get all of the mines that they had in the world to mine out and prepare their positions against Ukrainians in the south. Then Ukraine said, okay, we have our own resources. We captured some resources from Russia. We're going to use our resources even despite the fact that we're not getting anything. They were finally able to convince allies to give them resources. And they said, we're going to do offensive in March, early March. And early March, then it turns out no deliveries. Nothing is happening. Then there is Takshera leaks at that sen. Then there is the stuff with delays. We found out that the Ukraine getting supplied only about maybe like 20% of what was promised, and that all of the delays. Then there was this weird discussion about should we or should we not send Ukraine the heavy armored vehicles and so on. And the operation that Ukraine has proposed to do in March, because of the slow deliveries despite the promises, it started in June. Russia had basically half a year, like if you take from October, even more of free time to prepare, mobilize, train, prepare defensive positions, and get ready for Ukraine to come. Now, there is critique to be done for how the operation was executed. But the plan was to execute this operation in March. What is it like? March, April, May, June. So 3 months before, every day of those 3 months that Ukraine wanted to attack, they just couldn't. And this has been explained extensively from the guys that are actually have been executing this. It's insane just how much we were playing this diplomacy and escalation management from our side. Ukraine hasn't failed us a single time. Ukraine hasn't failed us a single time in this war. It's always been about us. Always. And the fact of the matter is that we talk big. When it comes to deliver, we just give out a shy fart. And I'm really mad about this. Ozzy Bugok, Georgie, have you ever watched the work of the Tochny team? They are well worth a look and perhaps a chat. Yeah, we talk with the Tochny team. I already said that I will invite them. We had a date, but then it kind of like moved around, so I need to reapproach them again. Jimmy G, should Ukraine invoice the US for the fake protect they promise they made Ukraine give up their weapons of mass destruction? No, that was a shitty promise. It was not binding. It was absolute garbage. Ukraine should not ever sign this. It was one of those deals that should never have been made, but Ukrainians just didn't know better. So, and US doesn't really care. Like the only reason this deal was kind of supported and still sustained, then it was basically because of the nuclear non-proliferation and preservation of the current world order. Well, now the world order is already done for, like it's in a gutter, and no one really cares about nuclear weapons anymore. So we are in a bizarre world, absolutely. Iridium and Inmarsat have been doing what Starlink does in Ukraine for years. Worth a quick Google search. Yeah, for sure. But I think the Ukrainians don't have the equipment. So the point is not only the fact that someone is doing something, but the fact that they have the scale and that Ukraine has a working setup, so to say. So it will be a big blowback. Are we doomed? No, we're not doomed. There is a way forward, There is a way forward. But the question is, are we going to take this? Like, that's my whole thing. It's like, it's one of those moments when, like, I really want to be wrong. I really want to be wrong. I really wanted to be wrong about Trump. Like, people say, no, Georgie, trust in Trump. Like, trust in Trump. Like, Trump, just don't listen what he talks. Like, don't worry, he's going to be great for Ukraine. And I said, like, well, he didn't fail in the first 3 weeks. I was like, just wait until week 4 then. I really wanted to be wrong. I really wanted to be wrong. And the same goes for my whole rant right here about Europe. I really want to be wrong when I say that, like, we're talking big. I want politicians to prove me wrong. I want politicians to make me apologize, make a crying video stating, guys, I'm very sorry that I talk shit about Europe. I'm very sorry that I was yelling at you. I'm very sorry about this. It was all for naught, and actually everyone was supporting Ukraine as best as they could. But that's not what we're seeing. Every time the time goes by and we found out more stuff that was happening during certain periods, it's always some weird dog shit that should never have been happening. Never. And majority of it does not even have any kind of, like actual restrictions, like physical bounds and so on. No, it was just political will, just lack of balls, for real. Like, that is the problem. That is the issue that I see. That we have all this money in the world, that we have all of this power in the world, that we have all of this technology in the world, and we are farting in a puddle. Misdemeanor, thank you so much for $10. USA cares, but our government has been hijacked. Please carry on, so you might help us be free for our own wannabe royalty. Misdemeanor, you realize that so far literally no one came to save anyone. Everyone is just waiting, for example, for Ukraine to just win this war or lose, whatever. And when you say like, please come save us in the United States, did United States came and save people in Georgia? You know, it's pretty bad when we're seeing like things like this happen, when democracies just fail, and instead of democracy we elect some weird dog shit. And it happened in the United States. But then you elected Joe Biden. And then you looked at Joe Biden and is like, well, fuck that guy. Let's go back to that. And the country decided. And I know half of the country didn't decide. And I know that it's like the lowest score that he got. I know all of that. But the point of the matter stands that he won. Like, majority of people decided that this is what we want. And my biggest upset is that's exactly what he said he's gonna do. And now you're asking, like, can Europeans come to help? We're barely able to sustain ourselves. We barely are able to find what we want. The whole world setup was built that United States is the smart and reasonable one, that they know how to run this world. But now it's Xi Jinping and Putin. Maybe I'm just the archaic person with an archaic worldview that thinks that truth matters, that you cannot just invade other country and torture people. That is not true. That democracy and human rights is potentially good. That hate speech is not great. That doing a Nazi salute at the rally is not great. And my biggest problem is not even the person that does the Nazi salute. My biggest problem is that when a person did a Nazi salute, everyone cheered. Or a lot of people did. Maybe my time is just over. Maybe the time of us being here, deciding that you know, having a free world for the kids that is based on reality, vaccines, fighting the worst that humanity has for the better of humanity. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is colonialism, is exploiting other countries that are weaker than you for resources. Maybe that is the time. But I don't think so. Not for me. Not forever. I might lose, but that doesn't mean that I will stop doing this. And I hope you will not stop as well, because that's the only way we're going to win. Ukrainians have showed us one thing, that if you don't fight, you do not win. That's it. That's the simplest formula there is. And right now, for people like me and people like you, we cannot just say, come and save us. It is about doing. It's about what we are doing to get towards that vision that we want. That's it. If you fight, only then you have the chance to win. Anyway, I got real sad. I'm sorry, like, for the questions. It got really upsetting for me. I'll answer a couple of more questions, guys, but James Bruce, the US may have the best weapon systems, but EU and UK can supply what is needed to fight. Their weapon systems are better than Russian system. What is needed a strong and united EU and forget US. Great point. Absolutely amazing point, James. Yes. So important thing in my calculation is that while we cannot match maybe Russia buck for buck, the quality matters. And I think, James, you make absolutely great point. Is because Ukraine does have quality on their side. And we have, as I said, best brains, best resources, everything that we want. Technology, surveillance, all of that. We have that available. So if we put our heads together and we actually start doing stuff, then I'm pretty sure we can get through this. Russia is in a very bad position, despite the fact, because the Excel table doesn't tell the full story, right? I hope you understand that. Like, while I love data, data doesn't just tell the full story by itself. So that money that Russia is having, it doesn't tell you the story that Russia is just running out of money just physically. There was this thread that I saw on a Blue Sky, right? Let me switch this one. So let's transition to Blue Sky. How do I go to my? How do I see my? Yeah, by the way, I hope you saw this. How do I see my own Blue Sky? Is there ways to see my own page? Am I stupid? Let me see. Oh, I found it. No, I didn't. Profile. Yes, thank you. Yes, there we go. So Prune here, Prune 60. So he has been looking at a lot of the data about the Russian National Wealth Fund, the war chest that Russia was having. And he looked at that there was this news that more than 100 tons of gold disappeared from the Russian National Wealth Fund. Well, he says not really disappeared. And then he presents this chart, and I will show. Oh, can I open it in the new tab and then zoom in? Yes, there we go. So this is the chart of the Russian liquid assets. So it shows basically what we're interested the most is red and yellow. So yellow is gold in kilograms. And then there is the liquid assets in Chinese yuan. And then everything rest is liquid assets in other currencies. So he says from 2021, when that fund was full, it goes full onward, up until 2022. And you see it's pretty good. The Russian war chest by the 6th is what is it? 6th is June. So June, July, August 2022, this is already after Russian invasion. The wealth fund is just booming. It's full to the brim. Well, the time went by and things started looking kind of bad. So let me just move myself a bit. So, and basically by the January of 2025, the only thing that is left in that wealth fund is red in Chinese yuan, and then there is 178 tons of gold. That's everything that Russia has. That's it. That's it. There is nothing more. This is their national wealth fund. After that, there is only inflation and money printing. Then they have no savings. So it's pretty much empty. The amount, this is specifically the amount that is mentioned here. This is literally for Russia to get past 2025 with their current spending. It's actually, if we're looking at the spending that they did in January alone, then there is actually questions if they can go past January at all. Not January, but 2025 at all without printing money. But we could expect they're going to start printing money. So Russian economy, their war chest is dry. They're out. So that's the good news. It's a great thread. I will send you a link actually to it. You can read it through. It's pretty good. And I will mention it in the upcoming video as well. Okay, let's see. Questions. The Mr. Gasoline. As the US is becoming increasingly hostile, who could Europe be friends with? Who is more maybe enemies of the US? And is Europe ready for that? The point that I want to make is that Europe doesn't want to be enemies with the United States. No one wants to be enemies with the United States. No one wants this. The only person that wants this is Putin and Xi Jinping. That's the only people that want this. Europe doesn't want this. So European politicians will try to do everything that they can to preserve this alliance. But my question is like, what are you gonna do besides that? That's the point. So no one wants to be enemies with the United States. Why would we want that? It's insane. Artmak Teagle. Starmer is going to unveil triple whammy to mark the third anniversary of Russian invasion, including military aid and sanctions. Well, we'll see. It's big words. We'll see what he presents, because so far I have not been impressed. Like he said, like, oh, once the war is over, we're gonna send 30,000 people to Ukraine. It's like, dude, like 30,000? What do you expect they're gonna do? Like the war is like million people each army. What are you planning to do? And if that mission, as Donald Trump says, is not going to be covered by NATO Article 5, then what's the point? What are you going to do? It's like, it's insane. It's like we're still living in this fantasy world where like 30,000 people is going to help stop Russia for some reason. What about Ukraine? Like, because Ukraine needs to sustain their army. If Ukraine is going to agree on this, they say like, okay, great. Then we need money to support our military as well. We will need about 800 million, 700,000 people. Because if you're going to send just 30,000, that's not a peacekeeping force. That force can barely hold like one part of the front line. Well, what are you going to be doing? If we need that, we'll need to have quite a big stationing army. And that means we'll need a lot of money. So if that peace agreement doesn't involve you just sending the 30,000 troops plus helping us sustain like 600, 700,000 army, I don't know what you're doing. It's like unicorns, yeah. It's like Ukrainians have already bitten this cake of bullshit too many times. And their eyes are wide open. They are not buying like all of these non-solutions. It's like, oh, we're gonna send 30,000 people. It's so incredible, and we have air power, and we have surveillance. It's like, bitch, surveillance for what? Surveillance for Russian tanks rolling over Ukraine? Insane. It's like fantasy world. I don't understand. It's like, is it a good symbolic gesture? Yes, it's a great symbolic gesture. Hey, here's pro tip. Instead of doing symbolic gestures, send help to Ukraine so they kick the Russians out, and then there is no need to send anyone anywhere. Insane plan, right? I know, crazy, mind-blowing, just boom, boom, boom. No, Art, we are very positive here. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm very, very positive. Like, guys, so what I want to underscore is that there is a way forward. Like, European Union has enough resources to help support Ukraine, at least not lose. And European Union can also support Ukraine to an extent that they can actually win. Remember that the biggest kind of thing for us all to remember is that what Ukraine has been doing so far is working, is great. Like, Russia has been decimated. Both Ukrainian homeland production and the help from allies is working. It's bleeding Russia dry. We just looked at the assets that Russia has. Like, their war chest is empty. And remember, war is only about three things: money, money, money. If there's no money, there's no war. Simple as that. So it doesn't matter what Trump or anyone else is going to agree with Russia and so on, even if they're going to lift sanctions on Russia. The biggest sanction, the biggest problem for Russia is the war. The war is expensive. And if you have no money and you don't know where to get it, then you cannot finance your war. It's simple as that. So even if Europe is not going to support Ukraine to an extent that they can absolutely beat Russia tit for tat on everything, I truly believe there is still more than enough possibilities for Europe to give Ukraine enough support for it not to lose, for it to keep on fighting, keep resisting the Russian aggression, and keep kicking Russian butt. And Russia is having trouble also inside of this. Like they're being closer and closer edge to the question whether they need to be mobilized once again. And there's a already big problem, like whether or not this mobilization is going to be as simply accepted and so on. So it is bad for Russia. Ukraine is doing kinetic sanctions on their oil production, and no one can stop that. No one. Like the funniest thing is, like, JD Vance. You know JD Vance? Heard of the guy? I have heard of the guy. He likes couches. Wait, what was it? Stupid. Yeah. Let's go this way. So JD Vance made a statement about that European stocks are empty, and he said, like, well, that means Ukraine is done. Well, I mean, yeah, because Europe didn't have any stocks. So the good news is that whatever Europe has been helping and donating Ukraine is fresh. That's mostly freshly made. A lot of what Europe has been donating to Ukraine has been freshly made. This is in reference to JD Vance. You can Google that. Google JD Vance couch, and that means, for me, is a good thing. That means that Europe will be producing much more than it did before. So the fact that there is no stockpiles, because there weren't any. So everything that Ukraine is going to get is going to be freshly produced, newly produced, and I'm, again, very optimistic, and I do think that we have a way forward. I'm just getting annoyed by politicians telling me they're going to go forward and not actually doing that. In any case, guys, today, very just like quick stream, so we can just have a chat. I answer some of your questions. I'm sorry that I couldn't answer a lot of them. I got derailed. I got ranted. Maybe I'm not even going to release this video. I'm not sure if there was like enough of the quality content, or was it just me rambling. I love you guys anyway. I'll come out with new videos as soon as I can. Tomorrow I'm going to appear on Shills, and I will protest on, I think it's also tomorrow in my city. There is also, we'll maybe take some pictures if I'm going to be there. Love you all. Slava Ukraini. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces. Trust in European Union. And maybe once we win Russia, we will come to save the United States. But I hope you guys will be fine even without us, because America is our close friend and ally, and we love you guys very much. I'll see you guys next time.